28th, 2012. We have discussed and we will continue to discuss the agenda items and order of our meetings, but we are talking about beginning each meeting with the pledge, so why don't we go ahead and try it out again. It worked well last time. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Al, could we have a roll call?
Mary Jane Brady.
Present.
Terry Carney.
Present.
Al Pfeifhouse, present. Eric Wagoner.
Present.
Leanne Charlot.
Present.
Mark Berry.
Present.
Susan Ryder.
Present.
Thank you. Okay. First, we have communications. Do we have any communications or questions from visitors? No? Okay. We'll move on to reports. Our first report is from our superintendent, Dr. Jean Sophie.
Well, good evening. It has been an exciting week and a half. It's been an exciting summer, but it's been a very exciting week and a half because, as you know, our children are back. Last Monday, I met briefly with the new staff, which we have some new staff members you'll meet in a few minutes here. Part of our orientation was going on the Lake Bluff bus tour, which I learned a lot. I'm sure all of you did also. On Tuesday of last week, I presented to the staff on all the initiatives that we're going to be working on this year. Common Core, assessment, teacher evaluation, principal evaluation, AYP, NCLB, school improvement plans, district improvement plans, park, fiscal responsibility, and the fact that we're doing strategic planning this year. They didn't have a headache when I was done, although I did have a picture of somebody with a headache in the presentation. And I think everybody felt very energized knowing that we have a framework in place and we're going to be moving forward. As I shared last week in my update, our administrative team now has officially passed all the teacher evaluation modules that are mandated. We are one of less than 60% of the evaluators in the state that are done, our districts, so I'm very proud of everyone. We had Tony Frontieren last Thursday. He's a leading educational author on using assessment to drive instruction. Spoke to the staff at an all-day institute. He was very engaging and gave us a lot of things to think about. And Joanne Trahanis and I have actually talked a little bit with him about having him come in and talk to our parents about Common Core. He was outstanding. And it would be a great thing to partner up with some local school districts and get him in. He lives right over the border in Wisconsin, so that's something we're going to look at. Last week I had lunch with the president of Lake Forest College, the village managers of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff, and the new superintendent of Lake Forest. And I need to share with you that we've all agreed that it's in all of our best interests to work together, and we had some very, very good conversations. Friday, our students attended a half day of school, so you could just feel that excitement in the air. Everyone had their new clothes on and their backpacks, and I didn't see a whole lot of kids crying. I saw a few parents crying. It was very exciting starting the school year off. I do want to remind everybody that the law passed this summer, and I will be putting this in an email to the parents on Friday, that next year the first and last days of school have to be a full day of school. Yesterday I was in classrooms. It was exciting to see the kids learning things from procedures on how to act in the hallway to procedures on how to turn in homework assignments to actual lesson plans by the time I got about halfway through the day. So the kids are already learning and moving forward. But I do need to share my greatest joy yesterday was a kindergartner being dragged out of the building by his mother, and he was yelling, "But I want to stay, I don't want to go home." So that was pretty exciting. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Good, thank you. Next is the President's report. I would like to start by thanking Dr. Sophie and the administrative team, our teachers, the staff, and our maintenance crew for getting us up and running. I know we had a great start to the school year, and our buildings really look beautiful. In addition to all the learning that's just about to take place, all the work that went on this summer really is showing. So The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was our July board self-evaluation workshop. For the community, if you don't know, the board, that was our 5th workshop together. So we have spent quite a bit of time this year learning about board governance, learning about communication, learning about Open Meetings Act, and each time we have brought in an Illinois Association of School Boards field representative to facilitate that for us. So we feel very proud of the work that we've done together in terms of our board work. Some of the topics that we have discussed have been governance, roles of the board and the superintendent and the rest of the administration, board communication, working together. We recently, in the July workshop, wanted to have a workshop with Dr. Sophie to get ourselves all off on the same foot together. So both she and the board felt that that was an important way to start. And we talked about things as in how we're going to communicate, what we can expect for communication, what kinds of information that she'll be getting to us and when, how we place items on meeting agendas, and how we're going to prepare as board members for the meeting. So those were just some of the topics that we worked on. That being said, we're preparing another workshop before long to talk about how we're going to evaluate our superintendent. And we also are going to work on perhaps a joint workshop with some of our local school boards on finance governance, school finance, and some governance work too. So that's what we've been doing in our off hours, but we're real proud as a board of the work that we've done together. The last thing that I want to do is just remind people that tonight's meeting is what we call an action meeting. We also have another meeting each month, which is the Committee of the Whole. Typically, the Committee of the Whole meeting is on the second Tuesday of the month, and the action meeting is on the fourth Tuesday of the month. That does change a couple of times in months where we've got holidays, like November and December, but typically, those are our two meetings. The action meeting really is meant to be a fairly concise meeting. Not that there isn't discussion at that meeting, but we really do most of our discussion and we have most of our presentations at our Committee of the Whole meeting. And this month we had several visitors at our Committee of the Whole meeting, which was good, great to have, and we're hoping that not only will we have some return visitors, but maybe some more visitors from our community joining us for the Committee of the Whole meeting. So that's all I have.
Great. We have Kate.
I think we have a PTO meeting, PTO report from Kate Amaral.
Hello. Can you hear me okay? So this is the PTO report for August, our first of the year. We are, as we mentioned last year, we're doing an electronic directory this year. So it's going to be an app for smartphones and for computers. And hopefully, I've been working on building that, and hopefully in the next couple weeks we'll get that launched. And each parent will have a ID and a PIN, so it will be secure only for the people in our district who receive the ID and PIN. We will have our fall fundraiser starting September 14th, going until October 1st. We've returned to using the family-run business of Innisbrook as our vendor. The quality of the products we felt were better, and 70% of these products are made in the United States, which is nice. This last Friday, we provided lunches for the staff at both buildings for the first half day. We are also in the midst of planning for the 25th annual Pumpkin Fest. This event will be Friday, October 12th, and Saturday, October 13th. Of course, we're looking for volunteers to help with the fun. Please spread the word. It takes a lot of volunteers to get this event going. The Pumpkin Chase, there's a 5K run and a 1-mile fun run Saturday morning, and registration is available for that currently in the PTO web store, as well as more information about events for the whole fest and volunteer registration forms. The first annual PTO summer reading program was held this summer. I wanted to remind everyone that we need to have those tracking sheets in by this Friday, August 31st. Students can hand them in to their teachers or their advisors, and we're going to tally those pages and numbers and have the results announced at both schools. So there's individual prizes for top readers in each grade, and then we have goals set for each school. If they reach that goal, ice cream for everyone. New this year, we're selling spiritware in the PTO web store year-round with 3 cutoff dates for distribution. The first one is September 21st for delivery on October 5th. The next one is December 7th cutoff for delivery December 21st. Did I say that right? December 7th for December 21st delivery, and then March 8th for March 22nd delivery, and that information is also in the PTO web store. This year, too, we are creating a protocol to welcome new families to the district, and we've really appreciated working with Jean Amundsen over the summer to get that information. Both Kim Burke, the LBS chairperson, and Lauren Kittemeyer, the LBMS chairperson, contacted the new families prior to the start of the year to welcome them. We've gotten great feedback on this, and in fact, one of the students we called didn't even know where the school was, so it was a very helpful call. Our enrichment planning has begun. Emily Lane and Carol Bleck are in the process of planning the enrichment programs for both schools. This year, as well as bringing back some of the favorites, we're looking into tapping into the Lake County Forest Preserve programs. Some of those topics include ice safety, Lake County and Illinois environs, birds of prey, reptiles and amphibians, and one program intriguingly called skulls. So that'll be interesting. At the elementary school, we had a successful Meet the Teacher Day and school supply distribution. On September 6th is the kindergarten ice cream social from 6 to 7 in the cafeteria. September 12th is Picture Day at the elementary school. And if anyone missed signing up for volunteer opportunities at Meet the Teacher, they can contact Kim Burke to find out what's still available. At the middle school, we had a locker day for 6th graders and a school distribution with a pizza lunch, and that went very well. We also had our first of several social events that we're doing this year. That's also new. At the middle school, we're doing 2 grade level social events, and at the elementary, they're class-based social events. So we had an ice cream social for the 6th graders last Sunday, and despite the rain, we had a great turnout and great feedback on that as well for parents and family to get to know each other. And a thank you to Jody Nadeau and Julie Stride for organizing that. Also at the middle school, the Dine and Donate for for September is the Market House on the Square. So if you bring the coupon that you can find on the website in and dine on Mondays there, they'll give 20% back to the LBMS PTO. And Picture Day there is September 11th. And just a reminder, the district PTO meetings are the 3rd Wednesday at 9:30 in the Public Safety Building, which our first meeting will be September 21st, and all are welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to discussion.
The first item for discussion tonight is an enrollment update. As I shared with you in the attachment on Friday, the enrollment in August 2011, a year ago, was 906, compared to this year's enrollment at the same time of 866. As of today, just checked it about 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're at about 870. If you look at the demographic report found on our website, when you click on district information and then about our district and then on enrollment, it shows that our enrollment was predicted to go down by 8, and instead it went down by 28. As one of you had asked me, and I would like to share this, fewer students impacts the budget indirectly this year. Obviously, we'll be using less supplies and overall less of our curricular materials, etc. It also means that we should not be hiring any additional staff this year except for anything that would be dictated by an individual educational plan. However, this may have an impact on staffing for next year, so we need to start thinking about this winter as we prepare for the next budget season and the next staffing season. If there is a reduction in staff, there's a great deal of planning and communication that needs to take place prior to that happening. So I think that's very, very important to start at least talking about for information at this point.
So the other question I asked you, Jean, relative to the strategic plan is, given the large variance between what was predicted versus what has happened, do we need to go back to the demographer and ask what may be different in his assumptions versus what we ended up with, and whether that impacts our long-term view? Because I think if I remember the data, it was about 8 to 10 less each year, now we have a nexus of 30, and you just got to ask yourself, is that just an aberration, or is there a new trend that's developed? I think as we go through the strategic plan, we should at least have a better basis for that.
I'd be happy to contact the people that did it. It may be a research phenomenon for this year. It was somewhat surprising to me because we kept getting quite a few coming into the office registering. And as I had shared with one of you, and I don't remember who, as far as looking at reasons, the reasons are varied. Every family had kind of some different reasons. So I'd be happy to contact the demographer and see what they would share with us, because they did the study. In fact, I know they presented it in February.
Yeah.
So, and kind of see what they have to say.
It would be good to get an explanation. I mean, that's quite a wide variance from the
And
prediction.
we asked him about it when he was here, and I remember him saying, we asked about the accuracy, how much can we rely on this, how much variation is there? And he said he could go, in some cases, go back 10 years later and find it accurate to, maybe off by one.
Right.
So this is really different from what he suggested.
I
in the
remember
past.
when he said that.
Yeah.
I also noticed something I thought interesting between what was last year's 7th grade class and this year's 8th grade class, which would be the same group of students. That particular population went down by, I think it was 6, and typically we see increases as the grades go up, and I'm wondering if we have any handle on the specifics. I know 6 isn't a whole lot, but 6 out of a class of 114 really is significant, and it's unusual for the upper grades to reduce, and so I'm just wondering if we have any specifics about why that happened in particular, or if we could look into that and figure out, and maybe it's more than 6 and we got some move-ins, I don't know.
I could do some research
Yeah.
that's on the current 8th grade class.
Yeah, the current 8th grade class is down 6 from last year's 7th grade, which is relatively unusual for us.
And I know that the general overall feeling, after talking to Jean, who did most of our registrations, is that it was every situation was different. So there really was no specific trend data for that, so.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's worth looking at, maybe there's nothing there really.
There's no question we need young families in the community. I was ready to get on my bike and go out and see if I could find kids on their bikes and tell them it's a great school district, come on in. But I think it plays to a bigger issue in the fact that we need to look at what attracts young families, and it's a great school district, it's a great community, so I think the numbers were somewhat surprising to all of us. So what I will do is I will go back and check with the demographer, and I will also check on 8th grade specifically and see if we can find any data.
One observation from the numbers that you provided, last year, at the end of last year, there were 77 kindergartners and there's 78 first graders, so that's pretty consistent. But incoming kindergartners, it looks like it's 63?
It went down.
Well,
So,
you count that
and
EHCP.
then we lost 120 eighth graders. The size difference between that 8th grade class and that kindergarten class is really, really stark. And I know this isn't news, but I guess half again, half as many.
That's been our pattern for several years. We did have, we were graduating classes of like 140, 150, and pulling in 70 to 80. So that trend is kind of, we're getting to the end of the bigger classes leaving 8th grade, and they're becoming smaller. But that, bringing in the smaller class in kindergarten versus what's graduating 8th grade has kind of been our pattern for several years.
But as recently as 3rd grade, our 3rd graders is a 106 class.
That was our,
Yeah.
kind of our blip year a couple years ago.
So, yeah, I think the demographer really, it should be, asked a few questions about what we should expect. Is a trend or a
We've
blip?
always had that difference between incoming kindergarten and 8th grade, but we've also had a pattern of move-ins as the grades go up.
Yeah.
This year's 8th grade is an anomaly to that pattern of move-ins.
And my understanding, as Jane said, I know in talking with Nate, is that we knew that this 8th grade class was going to be so much bigger than the kindergartners coming in. So I haven't heard that was so much of a surprise. I think the surprise was the general overall numbers. So, and maybe they're waiting till after spring, or Labor Day weekend. So I always hold out for enrollments until after Labor Day.
The state takes their count on day 6, don't they?
Day 6, and that is the figure that's then used all year long for calculations. So. And for the audience, we'll make sure that we get those posted on the website, so those figures are up to date. Our next agenda item is on the strategic planning process. I know that I shared with all of you that Dr. Gata is coming again at the September meeting. There's no question that we need Phase 1 and Phase 2 services of strategic planning. And as I had shared with you, it's very hard to compare strategic planning processes because each particular process and facilitation company offers different things. So I had to ask some probing questions, and I think you can see from the data that it's somewhat in alignment. It's just that you get different things for the different amounts of money. So what I'm asking you today is to approve our vendor because they have a great reputation and they will, I think they're best to facilitate large community involvement. And that's what I hear from all of you, and that's what we all want. And then what I asked him is if he would come to the meeting in September so we could go through the different choices. And then as an administrative team, we'll also look at what we have that they don't need to do. And then they can get started because there is an urgency to get this rolling and get it completed prior to the next board elections. Once the Phase 1 and 2 is done, as you know, then Phase 3 is involved, and they talked a little bit about the dashboards. I sent you the email about the fancy dashboards to look at. Some of that in conversation with all of us, we can do on our own, but we really need help getting the plan and the targets established based upon all the community feedback and the feedback that we gather from our learning community staff itself. So tonight we're asking to approve the vendor, as I said, in a price range, knowing that it's less than their highest price, and I'm assuming it will fall somewhere in that range, and we'll further clarify that when Dr. Gata comes in next month.
Which is a committee of the whole meeting.
Which is a committee of the whole meeting, so we can really sit down and discuss it and kind of whittle down what everybody's interested in. He will talk about all the different ways that we can reach out to the community. I know that the communications person also is very, very in tune with how to reach Lake Bluff residents. Because I've said, I know not everybody has email, but we really want to try to get as many people involved. Our goal would be to try to get everybody involved, but we all know that that's not a realistic goal. But we should look at every possible opportunity to get as many people as we can. It makes the strategic plan a lot more meaningful for everybody.
I did note that apples and oranges comparisons that you were trying to work through, and appreciate that. One thing that I thought that was significant was the level of community involvement, community interaction that we were hearing from the ECRA group that they would have, versus, and of course you can't tell a lot from what we see here in your analysis, but it did seem like we were going to get a lot of not only qualitative but quantitative assessments through the ECRA group that I thought that we and the community would really like to see.
What I found in many school districts is this other vendor that I had listed. They do a lot of surveys, and surveys are great, and it's a good way to hear from a lot more people. But I think that we gain a lot more from those qualitative focus group type, where people can really sit down and share what their concerns are, share what their needs are for the school district and the learning community. And that's what appeals to the districts that use ECRA. Really value their community involvement. They want to hear from the community. They want to make their school district an active part of the community. So
I also appreciated the fact that ECRA looks at this as not just a one-time commitment on the part of the community, but a long-term process for eliciting feedback and looking at, and thank you for sending the examples of other districts that use the dashboard approach. I did notice on at least one of those that there was an ongoing community involvement component to their work, and where feedback was solicited on an annual basis about the overall quality of education, and that was helpful to see that kind of information on there.
It really, when you go through the expense and the time of a strategic plan, and I've heard this from all of you, there's no point in doing it unless it's going to be a fluid document. It's got to be something that we can refer to. It's something that the staff will get very used to me giving I call it the state of the district, but they get updates on how are we doing with the goals, what are we presenting to the board, so that every single person knows what their role is within both the learning community, but the outer Lake Bluff community also. Typically, with a district like this, there'll be a community-type goal of some kind that ECRA will really help us develop and help us figure out what that will look like. So it's a living, breathing document, and I like the fact that they help us with strategies to keep it going and really reevaluate it once or twice a year, the different goals. That's appealing to me also.
You identified in your update that one vendor that you hadn't been able to connect with. I just wonder if the connection ever was.
They still have not called me back, so that is pretty telling for me.
Okay.
They want our business, right?
Okay.
They're not acting very strategically.
Well, and I figure if I once that can happen, but twice, especially when I gave them the date of the meeting, that to me is a strong indicator that that's not a company that we're interested in.
I know someone may have already asked this question, but I'm interested in the contracting process for consultants like these, because we're used to the bidding process when we buy stuff, right? But this is different, and I think that there was some discussion of that.
Yes, Jane and I talked about that too. In the school code of Illinois, there are special provisions for what they call professional services, such as an architect, legal services, strategic planning facilitator, communications. It's something that your services in your district are so personalized to you that if you were to write, feel free to jump in anytime. If you were to write a spec, you would be spending so much time writing the spec, you would be writing it specifically for one company anyway. But with that being said, I also think it's very important, just like all of you did with legal services last year, is to look into what's available and the different services that they do offer, and then make a decision based upon what their costs are, the services they offer, and how they meet the needs of the school district. So you still have to look at the general information on each of those.
Anything else?
Anything you want to add to that?
AC unit at the moment, I'm sorry. Little
Oh.
Middle school maintenance issue.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on strategic planning? Okay, I think we're ready to move on to action items then.
I think, yes, we're on action items.
Okay, the first item is personnel recommendations. Could I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the personnel recommendations as per the attachment?
So moved.
Second.
And shall we read the list of the,
Yes.
okay. We have Samantha Winston, third grade teacher. Brett Kreiner, fifth grade teacher. Bill Oakley, 4-5 multi-age teacher. Catherine Mays, special ed assistant. Those are all for the elementary school. We have Darcy Jones, seventh grade language arts teacher. Angela Ragna, seventh grade language arts teacher. Lauren Hines, special ed teacher. Mallory Smith, library media specialist. And Jeanette Rahoff, I hope I'm saying that right, occupational therapist for both the elementary and the middle school. And Nancy Goldberg, secretary website clerk for the middle school in the district, and the other teachers that I listed were for the middle school. And we have Dr. Jean Sophie as our superintendent. Some of these new staff had been introduced at the end of the year and were hired in perhaps April, before the year finished, so.
And that's Darcy Johnson, it should read.
Oh, Darcy Johnson, I'm sorry about that. Okay, and are we going to introduce some of those folks who are here?
Do you want,
We have a motion to.
yeah, we have a motion on, so we need to, we'll vote first and then we'll introduce.
Okay.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo?
Yes.
Eric Wagoner?
Yes.
Al Whitehouse? Yes. Terry Carney?
Yes.
Mary Jane Brady?
Yes. Okay, the motion carries.
And I am very excited to introduce you to 3 of our new staff members. So I'd like Angela, Darcy, and Lauren to stand. And each one of you gets your chance at saying just a couple words that you'd like, a couple things you'd like to share with the board, maybe where you grew up. Oh, I didn't tell them they had to come to the stand, so, sorry, guys, I didn't want to scare you.
Hi. I'd just like to start off by saying I'm not only absolutely thrilled to be here, but absolutely thankful. And I need to credit my grandmother, who was the person who introduced me to a love of books and also with an example of diligent effort and accomplishment. So I started off as a little girl who loved to read. I graduated from Indiana University with a bachelor's in English, which allowed me to do everything and nothing. So I quickly retooled through Loyola with my teaching certification and taught at the high school level for the Chicago Public Schools as an English teacher. I then was privileged to be home with my 3 children for 15 years and returned to the school environment with District 67, first as an administrative assistant, which allowed me to be in the building with my youngest, and then as a resource assistant. And most recently, I was resource assistant at Lake Bluff Middle School, and now stand before you just thrilled and so proud to be a new 7th grade language arts teacher. And would like to share my family is starting their 13th academic year in Lake Forest. And to all of your credit, if I had it to do over, we would be in Lake Bluff. But thank you very much.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Lauren Hines. I just graduated in December from Illinois State with my bachelor's in my LBS 1, and I'm the new special ed teacher over at the middle school, and I'm really excited. It's been a really big changing year for me. I just got married in May, and I moved to the Chicago area in June, and got a new job in June, and so I'm really excited. It's a lot of an adjustment, but I'm taking it in good stride, so I'm really excited. Everyone's been really welcoming, and I couldn't have asked for a better district to be put into for my first job right out of school. So thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Welcome to Lake Bluff.
Hi, I'm Angela Ragna, the follow-up with Darcy and Lauren. I'm also another 7th grade language arts teacher, brand new. I did my student teaching at Deer Path, followed by a maternity leave position that I filled over there. So I was there for a total of about 6 months, and it was just a great experience. I'm actually from Lake Forest, which was also a treat to get to go back there. I grew up, went to Everett, Deer Path, Lake Forest High School, and then got my bachelor's in English from University of Michigan. And like Darcy, had to figure out what to do from there. But I didn't turn to teaching right away. I wanted to kind of try some other things, knowing that I would always come back to teaching, and have been blessed to not really have a moment to pause and think what I would need to do with this teaching degree. I've always had something to do, and being a teacher at Lake Bluff has just been a whirlwind. I think we're just trying to do everything for these students that are just eager and ready to learn, and we want to meet their expectations and exceed them. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you again for all of your support too. I think it's going to be a great year.
Thank you. Welcome.
Now, I know all 3 of you probably are past your bedtime right now, so you may, we have a little bit more of the meeting to go, but all of you may go home if you choose to do so. All right, thanks.
Nice meeting you.
Okay. Our next item is approval of our contract with Cook Creative Consulting Services. Could I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the contract with Jill Cook of Cook Creative Consulting Services to provide communication and public relations services for 10 hours or less per week for the 2012-13 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Questions or discussion about that?
So my question before about consulting agreements kind of was in part regarding this contract as well. And on the consulting agreement that we are contemplating for ECRA, we had some kind of market analysis, such as you did for us. I'm just wondering what kind of information we have about the market for this kind of service that's being provided here.
Actually, as I shared with all of you, and I think it's important, Jill not only knows our district, she used to work in the district, she wrote some stories and things in the late 90s, but I think a stronger thing right now is she does PR and communications for both the Lake Bluff Park District and also the Chamber. And for me this year, she's going to help me come up with this communication plan, because as far as I'm concerned, once a communication plan is in place, the need for somebody is going to be reduced, because we'll have down, the principals can do some, the secretaries can do some, I can do my own newsletters. It will be reduced. I think also someone like Jill can help us reach out to the community in our strategic planning process, so that's huge also. The PR people in relation that I have worked with, both for bargaining and for other things, it really ranges anywhere between $100 and $200 per hour. She is right in the middle. She's charging us the same thing that the other two entities are using. But I think even more importantly than that, she's helping me as I acclimate. I want to get to know the community. I need to look at the staffing in the schools. She knows the community. She can get the news out on what's going on. Our community needs to know what's going on in our schools, as you've all said. Our community needs to be reached out for as far as communication. She can help us with that. Her references were outstanding. And again, it would only be the weeks that we're in school, so Christmas holidays, she's not working, next summer, she's not working. And by the end of next year, we'll have our strategic plan done, and we'll have our communications plan done. And I could tell you with certainty, besides the stories that come up that we don't know about, how many hours a week this is going to take. And some of it, if we start looking at redelegating some of our responsibilities and taking some responsibilities off one person, either eliminating what we're doing or doing something else, we can really start using our resources here more effectively, but we need to kind of see how everything's going to shake out right now. And the communications plan is going to help us do that. How are we going to communicate with staff? How are we going to communicate with families in the school? How are we going to communicate with community members in the school? With what media? Are we going to use email? Are we going to use phone calls? Are we going to use newsletters? And those are the kinds of things that need to be done this year. So
It sounds like like you were saying, the kind of specific things that we need someone for is so unique. If you were to write a spec, it would have a lot of these qualities that we're talking about here. Knowledge of the community is going to be key, and understanding sort of not only how the school interacts with the community, but how other government functions and the chamber interact with the community as well.
I think she's going to be very helpful with us. She's already told me she has many different ways to suggest it, to communicate with the community as we move into strategic planning. And that's important to all of you. We've all said that we really want everybody involved as much as we can with that, so.
In this particular type of work and position, I think it's especially important that our superintendent also be very comfortable with the person, because that's going to be a working relationship for a period of time. And so I tend to give a broad amount of deference to administration and how they select, the people that they want to work with to build a communication plan, so.
I appreciate that. I feel like from what I've heard in the community, the Park District has done a really good job with working through some of their issues. She really has high regard from them. She's very involved with the chamber. Now, I have not been involved with the chamber. I will be. I'm starting with Rotary first. But this helps me a lot as I get to know the community this year. I can sit and write newspaper articles. That's not where my major is, and that's not my passion. My passion is getting to know the kids and know what's going on in our buildings, because everything here is about kids. So, and then after that, getting to know the community, because the community cares about what happens to our kids here too.
Anything else? Okay, Al?
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Leanne Charlo,
Yes.
Eric Wagoner,
Yes.
Al Whitehouse, yes. Terry Carney,
Yes?
Mary Jane Brady,
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Motion carries. Our next item is approval of the 2012-13 tentative budget. Could I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the tentative budget for 2012-13 as presented?
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
Okay, you have several documents in your board packet with the budget. You've got a copy of the state budget form, you've got a copy of the budget summary, you've got every single line item within the budget, which compares to last year's unaudited actuals to the next year's budget. You've got 10 years of historical information in there to kind of show you some trends, both revenue and expenditure side for each of the operating funds. I know there've been a couple questions amongst the board members, so I do want to reiterate that this budget, which we refer to as the fiscal year 2013 because it ends June 30th, 2013, the revenues for this budget are provided by the levy you adopted last December in 2011. So those are the tax bills we all receive in May, and we pay in May and September for this particular budget. Outside of that, I'm here to answer your questions that you have regarding the budget. It is a balanced budget that you're going to adopt next month after the budget hearing on September 25th.
Jean, how soon can we get the documents all up so people can look at it on our website?
Within 48 hours.
So for our visitors, we'll have those documents up by the end of the week, so everybody's got them.
So Jane, I think that what you said makes sense, but maybe let me
Sure,
repeat it to you and see if I
Absolutely.
got it.
Absolutely.
So this budget, if it were radically different, if it were, $100,000 less than what we see it is, that wouldn't change the tax levy, the tax bill that people are paying. The way we influence the tax bill that people are paying is for spending next school year.
It's for the levy that we'll be talking about this fall. The levy that you'll adopt this coming December will affect the 2013-14 fiscal year. So tax bills that go out next spring.
And how do we influence that, right? We don't influence it now, but we influence it during the strategic planning program process, or?
Well, the board will have a discussion. We'll give you, historically what we'll do is we'll give you our best estimate of what is going to happen to EAV, because we don't know what's going to happen to EAV. We have history. I talk to the assessor. We can come up with a good estimate. And our estimates that we've given you in the last 10 years have been pretty good. That's not to say it won't be in the future, but so far, are pretty good. And we're a small district, so it's a little easier to manage than it is very large districts with lots of growth in that. So we're going to look at that, and then the board can make a strategic decision on what we want to see in revenues going forward. And we can make our levy meet those expectations, those parameters.
But it does entail not only knowing what the EAV is going to be, but just as we talked earlier, just class sizes, number of teachers we need, and everything else on the expense side. It's going to be a major component of it, because it's revenue and expenses that we have to obviously.
Absolutely.
That also dovetails with our conversation on fund balances too, right? Because we have to know at what level we want to maintain them.
That's absolutely correct.
And so,
That just falls out for revenue expenses, what's left.
That's absolutely
so
correct.
the only way we could address fund balances in this particular budget would be to spend more. Right?
If
The
the goal is to
$920,000
spend, if the goal is to spend more, spend your fund balance, then you need to spend more than you take in.
So it comes up later when we start talking about levies and things.
I think the big piece though, Mark, that you said that I want to reemphasize is, as I've shared with you before, it's time to start talking about levy early. As soon as we get this budget passed, we need to talk. All of you are concerned about that. You want to do your best at representing the community, and so we need to have some time to discuss that. So in December, you know where we're going with that. In conjunction, though, as you said, I think I've heard from many of you that there's an interest in talking about how much of a fund balance you want to have, and that, those two discussions really can be talked about hand in
Well,
hand.
you know, just to be clear, we have been talking about that for quite a while, but we've agreed as a board to defer that discussion until we had a better strategic plan in place, right? And so that brings us to that timing issue relative to getting decent financial projections done prior to the levy. Even though it may, in the context of the strategic plan, there may be other pieces that are yet to be solidified. We just have to figure out with the vendor how we can pull that piece of it out so we get at least a better feel for it. Because I don't think it makes sense to have the financial aspects of the strategic plan done after the levy. You know, I think we need to be doing that, at least a lot of work before that, and that comes back to the demographics and everything else that are happening. So if we can make that a sort of a special carve out and see what data we can get to pull that together earlier, it'd be helpful.
I think that might be an important thing to share too with Dr. Gata when he comes in.
Right.
Because that might be something, I mean, I do think the community is gonna wanna weigh in on that also, so that's his first thing he does anyway, is come in and talk to community members. So we can stress that, so that's done. We still need to be having the discussions along with that.
All the other pieces that have to be done too.
And I think when we're asking people in the community what they think about where it should be, you know, maybe we can provide all of us, as well as people that are responding to this, you know, what are other districts in this area doing? What are other districts who are similarly situated doing in terms of, you know, almost all of our funding is local. So our situation is different from somebody who's relying on the state or the federal government to cover their budget, and maybe our need for reserves is different. And that's a question I'd like to hear posed to the community to get their feedback on that.
One other issue, too, we've been grappling with for all the years I've been on the board is the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen with pensions. We're not sure what's going to happen with what percentage of our state aid, be it a small amount for this district, it still is several $100,000 are we going to get. We still have to plan for unknowns that year to year we have no idea what magnitude those are going to change. So part of the fund balance discussion has also involved planning for a rainy day that we don't even know how rainy it's going to be.
Right. Significant changes in the value of our housing stock, the possibility of the state shifting pension responsibility onto local school districts. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can't necessarily know.
But to Leanne's point, it's very relevant to know that we're being overly conservative or far less than.
Have benchmark data.
Right, to have because we can't be planning for a hurricane when all of the rest of the North Shore is planning for a sprinkle, right? I mean, I think we really do need to understand how we fit into the rest of the, you know, what our peers are doing.
I think I just would offer, I wouldn't argue with that, but I think we also should know why they have what they have. Not just they have something, right?
Right.
There needs
I
to
mean,
be.
there's got to be an explanation, a rationale behind it, because just to have numbers and compare it is interesting. You can say at least we're in the ballpark, whatever that is, but I think my viewpoint, we, at a minimum, we have to have a good understanding why we have, what we recommend, and it'd be great if we could understand why other districts are doing what they're doing, but I think the rationale is really important as well, if we can get that from respective districts as well.
And probably dovetailing on that, we're really in an enviable position to an awful lot of districts who don't have the luxury of deciding what their fund balances ought to be. They're struggling just to stay afloat or have a minimal. So, yeah, we got to weigh all those factors, comparing us to a district who, for whatever reason, is struggling just to get any fund balance reserve at all. Knowing that helps evaluate what that benchmark is, as well as getting numerous benchmarks so that we have more than just 2 or 3 neighbors.
Right, I agree.
to dig out some research, I think.
Other comments or questions? Any?
Jane, any concluding comments on that?
No.
All right. Leanne Charlo,
Yes.
Eric Wagner,
Yes.
Al Whitehouse, yes. Mark Berry,
Yes.
Terry Carney,
Yes?
Mary Jane Brady,
Yes.
and Susan Ryder.
Yes.
I violated my own order and almost got lost.
Jim, can you just, for the benefit of everybody's review again, the process, this is a tentative approval, then we come back in a month?
For the, for item D, ACRA,
No, for the budget.
The budget. The
Just
budget,
the
we're doing tentative
This is
budget
tentative.
right now, which needs to be done according to school code. Jane?
The budget is on public display for 30 days. Prior to the September 25th meeting, we had published in the newspaper after the committee of the whole meeting that it was on public display until the September 25th board meeting. There will be a budget hearing prior to the regular board meeting at 6:30, at which point in time citizens are welcome to come and provide any testimony on the budget that they would like to. And then during the regular board meeting on the 25th is when the board will actually take action to approve the final budget for this fiscal year.
Thanks, Jane.
And that's posted on our website too, right? That's our public display. Where is it publicly displayed?
It is publicly displayed in paper in the office.
That's why I asked that.
They have to come into the office. Once the budget is approved in September, then it is posted onto the website, yes.
And is there any good reason not to put, I thought we said a few minutes ago we were going to put this material on.
We'll put this documents, I've never done it in the past, only because we can make changes between now and then, but we won't this year. We're not making any changes. It's in concrete, it's in stone right now, so.
That's why I asked that question.
Yeah,
because
it's-
everywhere I've been, it's been paper.
It's paper, because it can change, but yeah, I'm not changing the budget. I'm not making an adjustment for anything.
And we're putting the budget documents up from this evening. It's not just, oh yeah, we have to. That's
So what is it that's only paper then?
The state budget form, we are required to have a document, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I
in the
thought you meant
office.
the tentative budget itself was only available in paper.
That is, but that's on the state budget form.
Which we have in this upload
And
as
these
well.
documents
Yeah.
will be online.
These other documents are documents that I just create for information for you all. But we'll put those on the
There's actually
website.
more on the documents that we're posting than the official.
That is the state requirement. We're putting out more and making it easier. That is the requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, state document leaves a little to be desired.
Because I know that every place I've been in has been paper. I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna be any different here or not.
Yeah, The school code requires the paper document in the office for public display.
We used to be paper too, but then we went to these nice PCs and laptops and iPads. And
It does feel arcade.
So now we're electronic flips. Okay. Next item is approval of the ECRA Strategic Plan Process Basic Services, Phase 1 and Phase 2, in the range of $32,000 to $50,000. Could I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the Strategic Plan Process Basic Services, Phase 1 and 2, in the range of $32,000 to $50,000 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. We did have some discussion earlier, obviously, about that. Is there anything else any questions anyone has, or anything else?
I don't have a question, but I just want people to know that this is a huge community process, right? That one of the things these people bring to the table is community involvement, and they expect the community to be involved, and we expect community to be involved. We hear a lot from the community, we want their input, we want their active involvement. You will be invited, they'll be invited, and
Many times.
this group will foster that, will make these meetings happen, so people's concerns and viewpoints can be heard and considered.
Well, and I'm going to double that, because some of the companies that I looked at, as I've shared with all of you, don't emphasize that community involvement, so we could have done it probably a little bit less expensive, but that doesn't accomplish the purposes of what all of you want for your school district. So, I think that's a big piece,
It's huge.
and I think they're going to do a really, really good job. I have to ask them what I can post on the website, but I think it's going to be important that we start maybe a tab or do something that we can put strategic plan information, process things on our website. So,
Makes sense.
When I looked at this, at the different levels that the different companies would provide, I think what came down to for me is that if we had a situation where we felt like everything was sort of status quo and we just wanted to update our document to have something on file, then it wouldn't be as important. But because we do have some pretty significant decisions to make in terms of our planning, the fact that they'll really engage the community, and the fact that I think they have such a strong research background, that I think will really be able to give us some confidence in what we generate, you know. I think you can, to some extent, you can pass out surveys and get any kind of information back and not necessarily know how reliable it is. So I like that they have that really strong research background, and I think we can have confidence.
I think, though, the other piece of that is all of us are going to be responsible to really talking to community members and getting everyone as involved as we can. One of you brought up, and I don't remember who brought it up, but there's going to have to be a piece on involving kids, too. So I don't know if they do that part.
They do. I've seen it on one of the benchmarked communities. They actually have an indicator for student perception of.
I think we need that.
Yeah.
So, you know, that would be something that I think is very important. Kids need to have a say in their schools, too.
I did think the dashboards that they sent us were really interesting and useful, neat looking. Not that we're planning to use them for our dashboard, but they were nice examples of how you can make one that's effective. Anything else?
Ready?
Okay.
Eric Wagner.
Yes.
Al Fivehouse. Yes. Terry Carney.
Yes.
Mary Jane Brady.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Perry.
Yes.
Leon Charlotte.
Yes.
Motion passes, and we'll be talking more to ECRA next month at our committee of the whole about
Yes.
some of the specifics.
September 11th.
Okay. Next is the approval to reclassify New Vision Athletics into Category B, Community Service in District Youth Organization for application of facility usage fees. Could I have a motion that the Board of Education approves to reclassify New Vision Athletics into Category B, Community Service in District Youth Organization for the application of facility usage fees?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Talked about this at a couple of other meetings.
I just want to remind everybody that whatever happens with this policy, it needs to be revisited. We need to really clarify some of the pieces to it, so. Thank you. That's going to be key, so that'll have to come back on our committee of the whole agenda also.
Any other discussion?
Seems to me that, I mean, yeah, there needs to be work on these categories. They are a profitable group, and the only category that mentions profitable group is E, which is the top end. The implication might be that the others are for nonprofits, but it doesn't state that. So it kind of sets up a dichotomy there.
I think the bigger issue, according to our legal counsel, is that the fees, which make sense on many levels, don't necessarily align with the facility use policy. So those two are going to need to be coordinated together.
Well, I guess the other struggle for me is, as a for-profit organization, you know, should we be subsidizing them in a sense if the fee structure somehow represents the cost of the district to offer those facilities?
Well, I know we've gone around a lot, but if you feel that the policy needs to be relooked at, why are we voting on anything until we have a policy that we are comfortable with? And then we could better serve, you know, our own interests as far as how we classify various organizations. It seems to me like we're doing something as a short-term possible fix, whatever it might be, and then we're going to come back and throw it all back up in the air and start over again.
My understanding is that there was a promise to this person that came to the June board meeting that there would be an answer on that for this year's. He's ready to start usage, isn't he?
He'll be wanting to fill out the form here pretty soon, because it usually starts in November.
I think we really need to, and for us to really thoroughly vet the policy the way we have with a number of other policies that we spend a lot of time on, it's not, we can't do that timely enough to get him a decision, you know, in terms of moving forward.
Is it about the gyms in like November, December timeframe? Is that what he uses?
He usually starts using it in November, yes.
I guess the other question I would ask, technically, if we don't approve his organization as Category B, does that leave him in E, or where does that leave him? Where is he currently assigned?
E.
E.
And my understanding for that would be that he would be assigned that category for this school year, with the knowledge that we would be bringing this policy back for clarification
I
for
would
next
assume
year.
we could review it sooner if we had the policy updated sooner.
I know this is a little bit beyond the discussion of this particular entity right now, but if we do modify the policy, Jane, what's the potential impact on having to revisit all of the other entities that, that use the facilities in the coming year?
Well, outside of the summer program we had this summer, which was based on this fee structure.
That's category B, right?
Yes. Under category B, we may have had one or two other.
Facility use?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not,
Nothing,
no. Okay.
We've also been told in the past, and I assume it's true, that as a board, we have the authority to make exceptions. So, we can come back and,
That's what this vote is.
but it sounds like we're getting into the issue of debating the specifics of the language here, where we could address that after we decide whether or not to make an exception right now.
And I go back to, I don't believe it's an exception, I believe it's an interpretation of that language.
And I think we've had that discussion. I think it is time to vote on it. And I think we all agree that we need to revisit the policy because it is not clear. And I think there's some other instances probably lingering out there that this policy may not adequately take care of as they arise. So I think we all agree that this policy still needs some work. But he is going to be sending out, I'm sure, information about his programs, and I think he needs an answer from us.
And I will bring the policy back next month, and we can start work on it then. I think for time reasons, I don't know how long it's going to take, because I think all of you kind of have different thoughts on it, and the legal counsel has different thoughts on it too. So, and we need to make sure that the two align very nicely. It was my understanding that he came to you a little bit earlier and then talked to you in June and has been waiting for an answer on this. So that's why I'm bringing it forward for a vote at this point, because I think he needs to know one way or the
His request was
other.
that he be treated as a nonprofit, and I think we're saying that that's not what we're doing. We're instead saying this is comparable to other category B uses. It's my reason for voting, is it's comparable to other category B uses, and as the policy stands, that's the appropriate categorization for him for now, until the policy is further clarified, at which point we'll go through a different process or the same process again.
Any other?
Get a motion out.
We do have the motion in the second,
Motion
so,
on the floor.
okay. Any other discussion? Al, go ahead.
Al Pfeifhouse? No. Terry Carney?
No.
Mary Jane Brady?
No.
Susan Ryder?
Yes?
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo?
Yes.
Eric Wagner?
No.
And the motion does not carry.
Consent agenda.
All right, we'll move on to consent agenda. Should we have a little discussion about how we're trying to clarify consent agenda?
Yes.
We have talked about this in the committee of the whole, and we're going to try to remind folks about this. The consent agenda is items that come up routinely for us to deal with, and so they can be placed all together and covered under one motion for us to vote on. So we have that explanation, and we've moved that on the agenda before the consent agenda items so that people will see that explanation. So could I have a motion to approve the following items on the consent agenda? Those items being regular meeting minutes from July 24th, 2012, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from August 14th, 2012, destruction of closed session tapes for February 8th, 2011, February 22nd, 2011, P-card report, bills payable, treasurer's report, activity reports.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Okay, yeah, we have a vote?
Mary Jane Brady?
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes?
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Leanne Charlo,
Yes.
Eric Wagner,
Yes.
Al Feifhaus. Yes, Terry Carney.
Yes.
Okay. New business?
Anybody have any new business?
How about old business?
I can ask a question, kind of a new business. When are we going to get a report from the architect on their investigation over at the middle school about the choral room and all that?
We'll be doing that probably at the September meeting. We'll present a report. So we have quite a few committee of the whole agenda items for September 11th.
So say pack a lunch.
Pack a dinner. And maybe a breakfast, maybe a breakfast.
Anything else?
I do want to share under new and old business, I'm not sure if all of you are aware, but the Starbucks in Lake Bluff donated Starbucks for us, how many days, 3 or 4 days, I think?
Just the one day.
Oh, I thought we had Starbucks there a couple different days.
There's
They-
the Starbucks.
They were very, very good to us, to our school district, and I did talk to them when I was in there, because Starbucks is my regular visiting places, but I think all of you, as you go into Starbucks, you might want to just thank them. They've been very good to the school district.
You must have appreciated it. It may be partly due to the amount of money that David Vick dropped over there over his.
They did mention,
And it sounds like you're continuing the tradition.
they did mention it, that they knew David Vick very well from his many visits there.
Very well.
They provided coffee for all the teachers?
Yes.
That's nice.
It's really very
set up
generous of them.
great coffee and everything for us. But what a treat for the staff as they were returning. So if you drop in Starbucks, you might want to just say a thank you, because I was very appreciative. Our staff has been awesome, and our district office staff has been so helpful to me, I can't even begin to thank them, so.
You know, Gene, I guess I would just, you had invited any of us who wanted to help serve lunch last Thursday to go, and I showed up, and one of the reasons I show up is because I just love to feel the excitement and the energy in the room, and I was not disappointed this year, so it's just really neat to see how excited the teachers are at the start of the new year, and not just to see it, but to feel that energy.
Thanks for doing that, Al.
It's nice to be in the
MJ
same
was there
room
too.
with all of them too, with our entire staff in one room. It's really, it is a good feeling.
Yeah, it's neat.
So, anything else? Okay, adjournment. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.